Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Parallel League podcast. We've got an extra special episode today, as we've got Kalos and Kohji on, the founders of Parallel, the ones steering this spaceship that we are all on. And I know you guys are full steam ahead, have a super busy schedule, so thank you so much for coming on the show.
Oh, thanks for having us. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, happy to be here with you guys.
I want to start out with an announcement that was just made yesterday about the prime lockups from the team. Pretty unprecedented, 10 years locked up. I just want to give you the floor to maybe, walk us through the decision and talk about it a little bit.
Sure. Yeah. So, I think we had originally in June 2024 locked up both like liquid and non-liquid tokens of all founders, and we kind of bought ourselves time doing that to figure out how to make this make sense from a long-term incentive standpoint. Um, and in the more discussions we had with other people who were really smart, be it in the space and out of the space, like the incentive should be there in 5 years. The incentive should be there in 10 years. Like if you're really going to try and build like a big, long-lasting studio game, multiple games and IP. And like then there's also like data, right? Like if you looked at the prime caching chart, when we did that first lockup, we locked up a ton of prime into like a 1 year bubble. And everyone started to kind of position against that bubble. And we're like, well, that shouldn't be the way, you know, clearly something's wrong with what we did in terms of, how we locked those tokens into that bubble. Because if the community is looking at it saying, oh, there's like an overhang here, then like we need to change what we're doing. And so I think it was just like a multitude of factors around how do we make sure, there's alignment between the community and studio? How do we make sure we have incentive in like 5, 6 years, 7 years, 10 years, whatever it is? And how do we make sure we're almost just like not a part of the formula from an inflation standpoint as like a founding team as it relates to the game economy? Like the last thing anyone who's building a game like this wants is to be like the kind of the burden to the community. And so I think like the smartest thing to do was to just take a really long-term view and say, hey, do we want to be building this in 10 years? And do we want to feel like, if maybe like a lot of things can change over that period of time, but like our interest and our desire to do this, maybe the team will be bigger, maybe the team will be smaller. Like, I don't know. But what I can guarantee with this new structure is that like we're long-term aligned to the next 10 years to continue to work on it, whatever that may look like, and however that may change. But I think that was ultimately the goal, is like let's just do the thing that is unprecedented. I don't think there is anyone else who's done this before, but like sometimes if you want kind of asymmetric results, you've got to kind of do things that haven't been done before. And I think there's also like a pretty big misalignment ultimately that like if I could say one last thing is this, like, I don't think the reward should kind of come progressively as the job is done. And I don't think that the reward should be so heavily front loaded. I just feel like that's like not true to, and like we didn't know this going in, right? Like no one really knew what Prime was going to be worth. No one knew anything. But like, I just think ultimately the objective should be like, do you love working on this? Yes. Then you should be optimizing for working on it for as long as you humanly can, rather than kind of like having all the benefit, the incentive front loaded. Because like any really big, good game and IP, like not everything's going to be a hit. Not everything's going to be for everyone. And so like you need a long horizon to really realize the scale I think we're after, and to really realize the maturity of the IP we're after. And it just felt like the right thing to do. Like honestly, that's the real truth. And it was our decision. It wasn't like someone came to us and said, "Hey, do this." This was like us discussing it and saying, "Hey, like we did this 1 year lockup. We extended our previous, vesting by double, but like it still didn't feel like it was the right thing." And so we just said, let's just be on the extreme end of this spectrum. If everyone's on the extreme end of short-term benefit, let's try to be on the extreme end of long-term benefit. And that's kind of our approach. And like, maybe we're right, maybe we're wrong, but like the good news is that like, I think the market understood it and the community understands that like, this is the best efforts. This is probably the best version of what you could do to align yourself.
And really, really, we just wanted to go to Twitter and say checkmate nerds.
I know.
So, you know, that as well.
Yeah, I was thinking that for the skeptics, like this is the antithesis of a pump and dump, right? I mean, this is serious commitment. You guys are here for the long haul. I can't imagine anyone looking at you guys and saying you aren't serious about truly making the best games, the best ecosystem that you possibly can.
Yeah, I think that is true for sure. I don't know, it's just like, when we love what we do, we're fortunate in that like we actually really love what we're building. We think, both on the, Wayfinder and on the Parallel side, it's just really cool stuff that we get to contribute to and get to make. And it's like, I can't imagine a better reward. And it is a lot of work. I'd be lying to you if I didn't say like I was working 20-hour days most days. But, I think like at the same time, it's like, I want to see this succeed. I want to see this kind of, over the course of like, we're just at this inflection point of the world beginning to understand and accept, NFTs and crypto more. And so like, now is the perfect time to say, no, we're playing the long game. And I think that long game will ultimately benefit the community, the game, the IP, everything. So yeah, I think it felt like the right thing to do, and I'm happy we made the decision. I'm happy we could get alignment amongst the founders as well, and yeah, I'm glad the community's satisfied with that. So
I mean, we talk all the time about how this is all that we want to do, just like make games. Even with all of the other fun stuff exciting stuff that we're doing with Wayfinder and everything else, it's just like, yeah, but if given the choice, we just want to make great games. And I think that like this is just us putting our money where our mouth is, I guess, for lack of a better term. It's just like, look, man, no matter what the situation was, I could, I don't know about Elon Musk rich, but I could have all the money in the world, and you'd ask me like, what do you want to do? And I would still just want to make games in the parallel universe. This is what we've kind of always dreamt about doing, and now we're like in the process of doing it. So like, it could be 10 years, could be 20 years, could be 100 years. Doesn't matter. It's like, this is just what we want to do.
Yeah, you gotta self-actualize in some way, right? You want to produce something for society that people love. So no, I absolutely love that mentality.
yeah, I think maybe the last thing I can say on it, if I can, Ali, is that like, I think, we've been working on obviously refining the game and like kind of getting some of the stuff in that people have been asking for. And then we're coming up on mobile, and like, we have grown consumer mobile applications, not games, but consumer mobile applications in the past to, around 1 million people. And I think like, it's taken us longer to get here than the vesting schedule really respected. Like, I think those things are out of alignment as well.
Mm.
Is like the inflection point of scale versus how long it took you to realize and actualize your value. I think like some of this stuff is just broken, if I'm honest. Like, I think the incentive structures are really just broken. And if we are honest with ourselves and kind of ask like the harder questions and listen to the community, we find ourselves in a position where we're like, yeah, like maybe something could be better designed here. And maybe it's better to be on the more conservative side of this kind of, graph or chart than to be on the more aggressive side. And so it was just us course correcting where we felt like we could. Because like, there's some stuff we can't touch, right? Like, a lot of the stuff is immutable, but what we can do is the stuff that we, personally have or control that are related to, our initiatives internally in the studio or as people. Like, we have control over that. So like, let's lead the way by example a bit if we can.
Yeah, I think that's a really big thing to point out, at least for how I look at things, in the sense that like being deeply and rooted in the community, we have an understanding that like you guys put a lot of work and really consider what's being said. Despite all the memes from Gone, like skill issue and things like that, like the checkmate nerds, there's a lot of back and forth exchange between the community and like the team. And the only one thing that I ever really saw online was like the skepticism around, this kind of topic. So for you to like refocus that alignment and be like, hey, our community already knows, but for you guys that don't know, like here, boom, it's on the table. And I think that, shows a lot that you guys are, here for those skeptics that maybe be like, oh, they're making a game, but like, it's not aligned properly. But, now you're like, okay, well, let's fix that. So that makes a lot of sense. I think it's huge, and I think it helps a lot for Parallels, I guess, like footing in the space or whatever. But I want to switch topics a little bit to the league, right? So how are you guys feeling generally on the league so far? We have not heard your guys' thoughts on this too much, so we're kind of like almost near ramping up towards the grand finale, right? Like the World Championships are right around the corner. We have Manila literally next week. So how are we feeling?
I mean, for my part, I'm feeling awesome. I think that one of the reasons why I don't mention it too much, it's like I don't know. It feels like a piece of fine china or something to me. Like if I jostle it, it'll like break or whatever. I think that like to make proper uh esports inroads, let's just say, you can't really force the issue. And like, a game yelling from the top of the mountain, like we're an esport, everyone come and like compete and whatever. It seems a little bit like you're trying to force it. Really, what we want to do is like let people find it, bring them into it, and allow our community to sort of take the esport reins, if you will, which is why we've partnered with guys like PDAO and YGG, et cetera, to like put together tournaments that lead up to something larger. And so just watching it in the background, I'm like super excited for what it's becoming. And I'm just, like I said, like, I'm afraid that if I like breathe too heavily, it's just gonna like uh, uh, crumble. Oh yeah, shout out to our partners in at 983 for actually helping organize and put this all together. Um, but yeah, I'm watching it grow. With bated breath, hoping that it continues on the trajectory that it's been going on, and then like uh, picks up enough steam that it's like another one of these things that is born out of Parallel, but is its own beast, if you will. Like people ask me all the time about Echelon, the foundation, and whatever, and I'm like, yeah, we helped start it, but at this point, it's like does what it does, and we just kind of sit there and watch, and we're like, oh wow, okay, and that's what I hope for as far as Parallel League is concerned too. Is it just like starts to do what it does, and you know every year or what have you, like it just rolls up into something like bigger and bigger and better and better, and yeah, just to see the start of that is super exciting. I'm really looking forward to going to Vegas and like uh sucking it all in. Actually, this is a little bit off topic, but like I literally just bought a bunch of like recording equipment and whatever because I want to like document the first Parallel major finals or whatever for myself and just like have that, and maybe we'll use it as content or whatever. But that's like not even the point. It's just like I want to be able to just like remember it the way that it was and not just like fuzzy in my memory or whatever. And that's how excited I am. But I haven't, like I said, I haven't really said much about it publicly because I just want it to like do its thing.
Vlogger Koji is coming up. He's in his vlog.
Yeah, if he doesn't get that mouthpiece, with the GoPro and the mouthpiece walking around. Have you guys ever seen those? Yeah, expect nothing less. Yeah, I'm pretty excited about it. I would say that like I try to I have like just like anyone else, like we all have our kind of favorite players and stuff, and like who we like to watch and who like align with the parallels we like to play. But I think generally I would kind of echo a bit of what Koji said. Like I think it's like an indication of maturity and growth, and I think like we're seeing that across the entire like player base, and we're seeing that across streaming even. Like I've never actually caught Yo Jeremy's streams before, and like they're incredible. Like he's got like all these different animations that pop up, and don't get me wrong, Allie, your streams are amazing. I love your streams as well, and same with you, Mookah. But I'd never caught one of his streams before, and it was just like super fun. And I think like these types of things are all like just positive indicators of this kind of like the people who really love the game, people who have a lot of fun, competing with others, enjoying themselves. And like I think the league is the flagship of that. I think a lot of that wouldn't exist without the league. So yeah, it's been amazing to watch it mature, and I have my favorites going into who I think will be big top contenders going into the champs, but we'll see how it plays out.
Okay, well now I want to ask. Can we ask that question? Sorry. Do you want to shout
No,
anyone out, or you keep
no,
it
no, no.
neutral?
Yeah, I mean, I have like the problem is like the people who there's a couple people who I really like watching play, and it's not a matter of their strat. It's obviously like there is some strategy that makes them a good player, but I think I enjoy watching it more for like the drama and
Mhm.
the kind of their reaction to things more than anything else. Like I think I enjoy them as people more than I enjoy them as players. And I'm a bit surprised by that because it's obviously a very high skill game. You kind of expect to like the best player straight, the cold blooded killer player kind of thing. But actually, there's the people that I enjoy are the ones who are just like casually having fun and talking and a part of the community and are just hilarious to watch, right? So
Yeah. I think that the league has the opportunity to make the superstars of the scene. Like it takes all of these different components to make it all succeed. But I will say, just being in the TCG creators in space, like the league is what has attracted so many of these competitive players from other games. Like people are really hungry for it, and that sort of breeds the reason to stream and make content and like really find the creators that are going to shine through that also happen to be really amazing competitive players.
yeah,
I
for
gotta
sure.
say,
I think it's the cornerstone of it all now, right? A lot of it.
I was just gonna shout out, not that these are my favorite streamers, but I really enjoy Tyler and Fino for their like real life friendship that they have. But you watch it like play out on, on streaming on whatever platform you want to follow them on X, whatever. It kind of reminds me of like an Apatow-esque buddy comedy
Mhm.
situation, like Jason Segel and name another Apatow guy, but like just they're over at each other's houses, like, literally adult men having sleepovers and stuff. And I'm like, this is incredible. I wish.
That's the
Yeah.
dream. I always feel like for me the league, I don't know why, but I'm hoping we get in like a WWE like attitude era for Parallel League. Like I just
Yes,
want
exactly.
I want a little drama, a little spice, some crazy storylines. Like I feel like that would be amazing.
Yeah. Can we have the competitors cut promos before they face off against each other, please?
Honestly, I mean, look, going into the championship, I think we should definitely, film some backstory, build it up, make it super exciting to sort of color the competitors even more than they are now.
Well,
Uh,
we kind of had that story, right? Story that, like to top in here. We kind of had that. Like I heard this story. I can't remember what the player's name is, but he's got the mustache and he just showed up and like dusted everyone. He told his who is it?
Is
Perf,
this
I think.
Manos? Are we talking about? Are
Manos.
we
It was
talking?
Manos. So
Oh, okay.
the story I heard with Manos, and I don't know if this is true or not, is Manos told his wife or significant other or his girlfriend or whatever that they were going to go to France. Was it?
Yeah, this was for a Paralan that was going coinciding with NFT Paris.
Mhm.
Yeah, and like I kind of heard the version of the story that's like he's just like, oh, by the way, I'm just gonna like take a day to like play this game with some people. I'll be right back, and like kind of like casually just like won, like beat everybody, and then like continued on with his vacation. And I think like
That's
that kind
exactly
of
how it
stuff.
happened.
Yeah,
We
like I don't want to misrepresent it, so I'm kind of being a little bit like more cautious about telling it. But essentially, like I'm not sure. Did she know that he was gonna play? Like,
I think he if I remember correctly, like he already had a trip planned and he's like, "Hey, what if I just swing by like Paris?" So they swung by and yeah, like he kind of just hung out, played the games for it was a 2-day tournament and then yeah, he just won and he's like, "Yeah, I'm going tomorrow. I'm going back to the rest of my vacation that I planned."
yeah, like casually walked in and wins like what was it like 20, 30 grand, right?
I forget how much, but it was a decent amount.
Yeah,
Made, made the
I kind of
vacation
love
better.
Yeah, exactly. Right. I just think like that type of story is hilarious. When I heard
Yeah.
that, and I saw Manos, and his mustache was iconic as well. I was just like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, this guy's got it.
I remember the Twitch chat, the meme then for that was stash power is what people were saying in chat whenever he was like winning his games.
Yeah.
I love it. Little side quest to win a tournament. Love it. All right. So on the subject of the league, I'm curious about the future. Like, what can you commit in this episode, or let us know about what's on the horizon for the league?
It's hard to say. This goes back to what I was saying earlier about Echelon being its sort of own entity and making its own choices. They're as much in control of the league's destiny as anybody is, and so I don't want to say or make any promises that maybe contradict something that they may or may not do. But I can say that I suspect that next year, uh, the overall sort of prize pool and maybe even the amount of play will be increased. So if all things go to plan this year, we're going to double down and make it even larger the next year. Hopefully enticing more competition and more interesting things. Like one of my sorry, this goes back to maybe your last question, but one of my favorite things about watching all this play out is I see people like secretly putting messages in Discord or whatever, being like, I have the perfect earthen deck, and people are just like, yo, send the deck code, and the guy's like, no man, just
No.
wait until after. Wait until after I
Patience.
dominate, and so I'm like, this is like so exciting to me just to see that stuff play out. And I think that as the amount of tournaments increase and the prize pools increase and the amount of players come in as an effect of that, we're going to see more and more innovation in the deck construction, and it's just going to be that much more fun to see play out. Because one of my favorite things in the world, despite what people might think, is when people find absolutely horribly broken stuff in the deck construction. When it's just like, oh, we never really thought of that. Every time someone does something, I'm like, oh, I never thought of that. I'm like thrilled, even if it's terrible and we have to like, make issue an emergency patch or whatever. It's just like incredible to see somebody go so far outside the box that it's just like it's magic. Yeah.
Yeah,
I've
that
seen.
happened actually. It's Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Kales. I'll go after.
Yeah, no, it reminds me of what happened with Brazy and Star Chart. You remember that?
Mm.
Yep.
Brazy, everyone thought Star Chart sucked, and then Brazy started using it, and all of a sudden, like the market responded, and everyone was running Star Chart because like he used it in a way that no one thought. And I think like it's definitely the coolest part because it's like a bit of like a collective learning process where you get to see someone do something you thought otherwise wouldn't make that much sense. And I think the one that comes to mind for sure is Brazy and Star Chart. And I just remember watching after Brazy did that, Star Chart just go ballistic on the marketplace because everyone was just like, oh, now we need Star Chart. So
Yeah, it's crazy to see it happening because I guess because of my involvement like with particular bonds and like players as they prepare for tournaments, the secret practice is the coolest part. Like people are scouting other players like, "Oh, I just saw like Lambie play this on ladder. Did it work? Okay, can we make it? How does this play?" I remember so Iraq like out of nowhere became huge. I'm going to give credit to Lambie for discovering it in competitive play, for it being really really strong. And yeah, when he figured it out, I remember getting a message from Brighty being like, I lost to Lambie 4 times, him playing Iraq. And then I remember so Brighty, for those that don't know, I guess like within the Exile group, has been the best indicator of like the meta that I've seen. Like he saw Drone Printer, he saw Triumph of Europa, he saw some of these cards, like, and he saw Iraq. And I'm usually the guy who's like, you're wrong. But then now I've learned enough to like to not listen to myself and just try it. So I spent a whole day and a half on Iraq being like, this deck sucks. I can't win any games. And then I remember just sitting there one day on a Lambie stream and I decided to like poke and prod, ask some questions about deck build. He gave me a few little gems for free. And then from there, I just started playing and I remember just typing like I tagged Brighty and I'm like, this works. And that kind of like being involved in that is so cool, and then seeing it play out in the tournaments is even cooler. Like the Gafar Discovery, even like Universal when it first came out, like we saw it steadily, Ali, like from the caster side.
Yep.
Like it was there, and then it started showing up more, and then another iteration showed up more, and then suddenly, oh, this is the best deck by far. And that kind of like practicing between like teams trying to figure out what's the right build, and they're in like kind of like what Koji said, like they're like I figured it out, and you're like, you'll see. And then suddenly they whip it out in tournament, and you're like, how do I beat this deck? I don't know how to play against it or anything like that. That's what I live for. I feel like that's the most fun part about the league. And I do want to also add I want to like kind of testify for Koji and Kalos that they really do enjoy seeing this development. I remember meeting them at NFT NYC and just nerding out over like Earthen's current development. This was like before Planetfall came out, and them just like sitting there being like, wait, so they do this now? And they play this card and this card. It was like kind of this shift. I think it was like Earthen we were talking about. I can't remember. And then I took Kalos's deck and I just updated the whole thing. Like I was just so excited while we were talking about it, and just updated the whole thing while we were sitting there talking. And yeah, I think that this league is just amplifying that feeling like tenfold, and it's happening so frequent. So that in tandem with like, new expansions, new balance changes, it just adds like a whole element of like fun and entertainment that we weren't getting without the league.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
Mookah,
agree.
I was gonna say, Mookah, like, do you agree with me? We've casted quite a few tournaments at this point, and I am not fatigued on it at all because it seems like with each tournament, something new is being discovered. And so it's been really, really amazing to see. And also, I think it's a testament to the complexity of the game, And I'm kind of curious, like, was it intentional, to make it this, I don't know what the word I'm looking for is, just like complex or vast, like, or, what was the thought process going into it? Like trying to rival a Magic type of thing?
I mean, for better or worse, I think the answer is probably yes. Like,
Yeah.
it's one of those things where I just made the game that I was interested in, and I grew
Mhm.
up playing Magic, and I loved it. And for all of the like back and forth and whatever that's gone on in the last while, like I love Hearthstone as well, and I think that what they did, like I talk about this a lot. I'll be very quick about it, but these games are interesting because of the randomization elements, and usually you use it. You're playing a deck based game. It's because of the shuffling, and then Magic, with the mana system, it was a little bit too random. So then Hearthstone kind of streamlined that, but they also made it a bit simpler. So what I tried to do was like, okay, let's keep in that streamlined element, but how do we add another layer of complexity to it? And not thinking like, wait a second, maybe some people want simpler or maybe whatever. It was just like, this is kind of what I want to play. And it's kind of funny because we were like 80% of the way ready to like put this out there in alpha or whatever. And our CFO was just like, is anyone going to want to play this game? And I was just like, I hope so. I hope so. I want to play it. And so, yeah, I mean, was it intentional? It was sort of intentional, but not from, only from the perspective of like, this is the thing that I wanted to see, and not from like, oh, this is what will like, bring in the dough or whatever. And it makes me happy to see people taking it and making something amazing out of it, because people expect us, like Kalos and I, to be like amazing at Parallel. And the truth is, like, we're probably amongst the worst players at the game. And it's like, I don't build the sandcastles. I just give people the sandbox, and that's kind of how I look at it. It's just like I let the pros be the pros. I just like try and make things interesting for them.
I think that makes a lot of sense, and I think honestly, the way you described like the process of making Parallel, like that's how the best games are made. I feel like the way that I've seen you guys talk about Parallels, how I get, that was what attracted me. It gave me vibes of Larian Studios, which is like the guys who made Baldur's Gate 3 and Divinity. Like those were my favorite single player games like ever. And part of that was like the excitement that like the team was showcasing when they talked about the game. Like they were making the stuff they wanted to see in the game, not like what was attractive to maybe like a particular niche or market. It was just like, hey, we really like these elements of these games. Let's put it in our games and let's do it. And I really, when I first saw, like, I think Koji, like, you were like the first one I actually saw like the team talking about it, and the way you spoke about, like, you just wanted to make the game you wanted to play. And I was like, yeah, they care, and it shows like a level that of caring and just like intrigue that you don't get too often nowadays.
I also think that, like, with every subsequent set, the puzzle becomes, infinitely
Hmm.
more complex. Like, I think what ends up happening over time is, like, Aftermath is about to come out. That's going to add a whole nother set of cards to the kind of the optionality of what people want to construct. And I just think over time, like, if you zoom out, you start to get to a place where, like, really you can ultimately construct whatever kind of weird and fun strategy you want, because the pool of available resources is so large. And I think every time we do that, we see, a huge meta shakeup, obviously, and everyone tries to reposition. But ultimately, what we're really after is, like, people doing fun and creative things with the cards, right? That, like, were aha moments, and oftentimes, like, we don't even see them coming. So we have our own ideas as to, like, how we would, break a meta, or compete against something that's become very popular. But to see people come up with something entirely different than what we thought the response would be to a particular strategy is kind of like the best part, right? Like,
Yeah.
it's just fun to see everyone discover it. That's and, like,
Yeah.
we think so. A lot of times we think we know what they're going to discover, and then they discover something else.
Shout out to Pocket Dimension and John lovers everywhere. They
Yeah,
deserve it.
Kalos, I think that's a really good segue sort of into the next topic here, which is about Aftermath. And, you know, I'm kind of curious too, like, are there any lessons from Planetfall that you guys took away that you would do something different in the future, or something that you really liked from Planetfall before we get into Aftermath talk?
I can't comment on I'll let Koji comment on the cards in Aftermath versus Planetfall or the Alpha set. What I will say is, I'm typically the person who's, like, driving how the experience will be different.
Mhm.
Like, so, like, obviously we're going to have a cinematic. We have, like, and then for a subsequent set, we have this called Deception. We have, like, a cinematic that everyone really wants. I think, like, we have an opening cinematic that's new for Aftermath. We have, like, a narrative based cinematic that's, like, kind of Blizzard esque that's coming
Ooh.
for Deception. But the stuff that I think is where I contribute the most probably is around how we can introduce new fun variables into the pack opening experience.
Mhm.
And so there in Japan, there's a very famous card shop, probably the most famous card shop in Japan, called Harurura. And when you go there, they have this thing called the God King Wall. And the God King Wall, you give them some money and they give you a pack of, like, 20 cards. And you have a chance in that pack of 20 cards or whatever it is at getting this card that has, like, an alpha, beta, or, whatever else on it. And there's a glass box on the wall that has rows of cards, and alpha being the best ones. And there's, like, a Black Lotus in there. And then
Wow.
maybe there's, like, Tropical Island in the beta row. And they progressively get worse. But they're all high desirable cards. And so in Aftermath, essentially, the chase card is one of these alpha, beta, or gamma cards. And if you get one, you get to pick a card in this kind of glass box and redeem your insert for it. So essentially, and then it's based on first come first serve. So essentially, looking at how do we make the card, the pack opening experience even more interesting? How do we add a new element of chase, and kind of looking at what some of the best card shops in the world do in introducing some of those variables? That's how I contribute to it, more so than actually the cards themselves, which are designed by Koji and team. So maybe, Koji, I can turn it over to you on that front.
Sure. You're gonna have to ask the question again though, because my headphones died in the middle there. I just had to swap out the battery, so I
No
didn't
worries.
hear any of what it was.
Well, I was gonna lead into, discussion about Aftermath, but before we got there, I was just curious if like any lessons from Planetfall, in terms of design or just anything at all, things you liked that, you can share.
Oh man, I that's so tough. There's always a ton of lessons. Um, I think that like the biggest lesson that I've learned is that uh, when I started this, I was designing cards with a magic mindset, which means that like you create it and then that's it. That's what the card is. That's how it exists, right? But we are in a digital medium, and that allows you to like tweak things and adjust things, and like it offers you a bit of freedom, right? Because a perfectly balanced card doesn't necessarily make for an interesting card.
Sure.
And so when you're hedging to the side of more balance, you can kind of take away some of the bite. But I think some of the lessons that we learned is like you can adjust and scale things, and players will learn how to play around and adjust and scale things as you go. And so it gives us an opportunity to be a little bit more daring with our design decisions. And I think that kind of leads into the next set, which is just like, let's do things vastly more interesting. Now, and that's not to say that we haven't play tested it, or that we don't think that, or like that we think it's like completely broken. But if anyone's complaining that it's completely broken, our goal is to make it evenly broken, right? And so it's just like all parallels have an interesting opportunity. But what we've done is like uh, uh, created things in a way that we know things will change going forward. And that doesn't sound like, it sounds obvious, but uh, in the beginning, the mindset was like, okay, this is people's first taste of this thing, so let's make sure that they really get a sense of what parallel is. Let's hone it in as like finely as we can, and then put it out in the world. But now it's more just like, okay, people know, the flavor of parallels there, the game is there, people understand what it is that we're trying to do. Now let's like, bust it wide open. Let's show people how interesting we can make this, and that's what we're attempting to do anyway. And so our design decisions have kind of informed that, and I think that people will see things um, uh, very differently when the new set comes out. The one thing I will say though is that they'll probably surprise me more than I would expect with this new set as well, because they're going to find some stuff that is like completely off the reservation.
Yeah, that's always how it is. The hive mind is, uh, very intelligent when it comes to figuring all of these different things out. I definitely want to just say to both of you, but when Mook and I spoke to Veen, we were like really, really impressed. So, just really think having him on the design team was a good choice as well.
Oh yeah, he's been helping really sort of take the design to another level. It's interesting because there's like two sides to him. I don't know how much it came across in the conversation that you had, but really like he's very safe, let's just say, when it comes to um, how cards should be constructed, so that like the balance isn't too far off as far as like costing for ability or stats or what have you. But then like when it comes to here's like a new thing that I think a card should do, is like completely unhinged. So it's like pretty interesting to see him like put stuff together. It's been a lot of fun actually.
You're watching like a mad scientist in the lab, right? Just
Yeah, that's it. And I mean, I think Kalos would appreciate this, but like the goal always when looking for people to like assist us in making the thing is like, let's find somebody who is smarter or more interesting, or more dialed in at a specific element than I am. Like I want to hire people that I can learn from, basically. And I think that he's like one of those guys where it's just like, okay, he's like uh I definitely understand the mad scientist bit of it, like the unhinged part, but like as far as like dialing it into a science where it's like, okay, cost versus some of this other stuff, he's really kind of opened my eyes to a lot of it.
Yeah, for those of you listening to this episode and you haven't seen that episode, it was maybe 3 or 4, but I definitely recommend going and checking it out. It gave a lot of insight about what the team is thinking about for the future of the game. But on that, so I was gonna ask, like, what was sort of the mindset going into Aftermath here? But I feel like you kind of, it was definitely more experimentative, right? That's what you're saying. Um, and
Yeah,
yeah.
and also just try to fit the theme.
Mhm.
A lot of the time, like you can design things in a lot of different ways, and I've alluded to. I'm looking over at my shelf here because I've alluded to this book called The Art of Game Design a few times. I think it's a really good one for people to check out, and really it like deconstructs how games are made. But sometimes you start with an interesting mechanic or something on the game side, and sometimes you start with things on the story side as well. So what we did with some of the set was, okay, this is like after the initial skirmish. What would the aftermath of a war like that look like, and how would that feel from a card perspective? And so we tried to also just design cards with that idea in mind. It's just like uh you know not full scale guns blazing, two armies meeting on the battlefield. It's like, okay, maybe there's a bit more espionage here, maybe there's a bit more backroom deals and things like that. And so we tried to design with that idea in mind. And so a lot of it's also narrative driven, not just mechanically driven. And so then we create mechanics based on those narratives.
I
Yeah,
personally love that for sure.
Yeah.
and
I went looking under my desk real quick. I bought the book after Veen talked about it. I was
Yeah,
so
Bean talked
interested.
about it too. Oh, nice.
oh, nice, that's good. Yeah, I think maybe to add to that, like there's a lot of like logic and process and probably statistics and that goes into what they do, and then there's the narrative and story that guides it. Like I think there's also this other side of like me just shoving blocks into the art team that are like I would like to see that. I do this a lot, and they're just like, oh god, here it comes again. I typically am like and I think we saw a taste of this the set after Aftermath called Deception. Is like I wanted to see team ups. Like I wanted to see like like characters that are like Magna and Meritus. There was that
Mhm.
card that we kind of showed, and that was actually an accident. I wasn't supposed to show that card because it's not part of Aftermath. It's part of Deception. But like the idea, yeah, I got flack for that.
Oh no.
But the idea, yeah, yeah, I'm the biggest leak for sure. But I think the idea was that like if you go back at like and look at some of the nostalgic sets of cards from like the Marvel days or whatever, like you'd get like Hulk and Wolverine, you'd get Cyclops and Jean Grey, and whatever it was. And I always thought that that was just so iconic. And I said to the art team, like, can we figure out how to fit some of this into Deception? Because like I want to see the two of them on the same card. Um, and I think so. I think there's like an element of that, and then there's just an element of like always trying to insert nostalgia into some of this stuff, and kind of thinking about what we would want to collect and why we'd want to collect it, and making it a part of the set as well. So I think you'll see that definitely show up in Deception.
Yeah, I remember when you tweeted that out. And Magna and Meritus are like debatably my favorite characters. I mean, I love them all, but I super love them, and so I was really really excited to see that. And also just you mentioning the cinematic that's coming out, like for me
Yeah.
as a person, I have never really played League of Legends or WoW, but I will have gone through and just watched all of their cinematics because that's how much I care just about like the lore of games. And so the comics, the cinematics, just everything. It's just building. I mean, you guys know, but I'm just saying it again. It's just building such an amazing universe, and I definitely like leaning with the narratives when designing the sets too, because it makes it feel extra cool. So
Yeah,
absolutely.
I won't spoil. I won't spoil. So there's obviously a new pack opening cinematic experience for Aftermath, and I won't spoil the Deception cinematic at all, just because
Okay.
it's really like quite a, you know, something it'll be something to behold. But I will say that we very much listened to the community's feedback of like, we want a story driven cinematic that is like longer and deep and emotional and chaotic at times, and like, can we produce that? And so internally the team is very much doing that exact thing, so I think you'll get what you wanted.
Amazing. All gearing up for the eventual feature film, right?
I mean, I'd love to get there, right? Like, that's definitely, again, right, 10 years, sometimes
Yeah.
these things take that long. And like, I don't know how many years it took for what was it, what was that series that came out on Netflix
Well,
with
Arcane.
Jinx and Arcane, thank you.
Arcane.
Yeah, so like, I don't know how many years that took, but I would be willing to bet it's somewhere in like that 5 to 10 years range. But
I think yeah,
yeah,
around there.
yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. Yeah, so I think like ultimately though, we'd love to get there in a game, right? Just like setting ourselves up to get there takes time. But I think the more of these we do, and the kind of obviously the broader the player base, and the more we, it's almost a funny thing because like, as you want to make these cinematics and stuff, but like they make more sense. Like, they actually attract players, like you're suggesting, Allie, right? Like, a lot of people like watch the cinematic and are like, oh, I'm actually interested in this game now. But at the other side of it is like the amount of time and production value that goes into creating a really high quality cinematic like the one that we're making right now is just, you know, incredible. Like, it's a Herculean effort. So it's a bit of a balance, because it's a bit of also of like which comes first, the horse of the cart, because one, you know, is a marketing piece, and the other one is, you know, it doesn't add to the actual game itself, but it adds to the growth and marketing of the initiative. So yeah, but I think hopefully we get to that place where one day we can all sit back and eat popcorn in a cinema and say, I remember when this game was in alpha and it was really funny and it was terrible, and now look at it. Right.
Well, I look forward to that day. I was curious, just a little bit, kind of bringing it back to just some announcements of the game and stuff like that, like the mobile launch. I think guys said quarter 1 of next year. Like, what are you expecting from that? And will there be a big marketing push around that time? Like, I'm just maybe giving the listeners a little bit of more insight on that.
Um, what are we expecting? I mean, our goal is just to meet players where they are and let them play where they'd like. There's a big section in that book that you just held up, actually, about where players play and how that affects the style of game. But I expect a lot of people will want to play Parallel on the toilet, so let's let them do that. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, what can you expect? I mean, we're doing our best to bring the Parallel experience that people already know and understand to the mobile. Um, and with that means some changes to the client in general. So we're going to make some changes to both the desktop and what will be the mobile client in order to help facilitate some of the mobile first things that we would like to do. So if you notice you download the client and it looks a little bit different, it's just keep in mind that we're trying to get this thing to work on a phone as well. And yeah, I mean, I think that if you are a regular Parallel player, your experience on the phone shouldn't be that much different than the one that you're used to on the desktop. Obviously, the screen will be a bit smaller, and you'll have to, maybe squint a little bit. But outside of that, I think that, yeah, really what we're trying to do is just like uh, bring together the desktop and the mobile and whatever else. Let people play where they want, and that also includes the sort of web-based platform that we have it running on too, so you can play on your Mac or whatever other device you'd like. Um, Basically, just bring Parallel to as many players as possible, and we know that players in Asia, because for anyone who doesn't know, we've been making a lot of inroads in places like Japan and obviously the Philippines and a few other places, and a lot of those places are mobile first. So like, let's get those players in and running. And as we discussed earlier, the more players we have in there, the more innovation we'll see, the bigger the game will grow.
And also for the league too, it'll be interesting to see what happens. Like, theoretically, with more people that have access to the game, more and more people we be competing, right? So that'll be
Yeah.
exciting to see.
When are you gonna start streaming in Japanese, guys?
Oh God, I need to start taking some courses.
That's right.
Have you ever done that though? My community has gotten me to do that with games in the past, where you switch the language and you just try and it's actually a lot harder than you'd think. Like you think you know the cards, and I don't know.
I've played Parallel on Japanese. I just like the text UI.
Yeah.
Sometimes it looks so clean, so sometimes I switch to Japanese, and I don't know, it just feels good. But yeah, there are times where I'm like, why isn't this card working? And I'm like, wait, hold up, maybe I'm not reading it right, or I don't remember it right.
Definitely. Well, I think that we're getting down to the wire here to wrap the episode. I want to go over just a little bit of news before we do so. A big congrats to Shogo for winning the November Majors qualifier. So that secures a spot at the next major, and it's racking up the points to make it to the Prime Championship. So big shout out to Shogo. Next week is the YGG Showdown in Manila. Mookah, Kalos, and I will all be there, and I am so excited. Just in general, in-person parallel competitions. I really hope that we get more of those in the next season of the league. I think they're really special, and oftentimes when you've listened to interviews of pro players in Hearthstone and Magic, they generally say that their favorite moments have really been those competitions in person, where they get to see their best friends and make those memories. So that is next week. So definitely don't miss that. It'll be streamed on Twitch and all the things. And then there's also one more minor coming up in December, and more information will be coming out on that soon. But you can always go to parallelleague.game for all the updates on when the competitions are and anything else that you might need. So before we wrap, is there anything else that you guys would like to just say to the community or mention?
Yeah, I'm sad that I'm not going to be at the YGG event. I loved Manila when I went last year, and it's like one of the. Now, I look forward to all the parallel events, but it was one of the ones I was looking forward to most, and it just so happened that I had a scheduling conflict, so sad I won't be there. But I will say, anyone who can come to Vegas for the big event, because I'm looking forward to just like wandering around and meeting everyone. And this is like the first time we'll have held an event of this magnitude that is strictly for parallel. I mean, we've had a couple lands before, and I don't want to diminish those, but like this just seems like it's on another level. And I'm ready, man. I don't know where it is now. It's around here somewhere, but a friend of mine bought me a power glove because I joked with the parallel community for a long time that I was just gonna wear a power glove as a fashion accessory. Now I have to do it because I have it. So just look for the guy in the power glove, and that'll be me.
What do you mean by a power glove?
What's a power glove?
What's a power
Oh
glove?
man, where did I
Oh
know
my
that?
goodness, I can't believe Allie doesn't know
them
this.
off. You set them off.
It's a Nintendo Power Glove is like an iconic piece of. It wasn't that useful though, was it, Koji? Like
No, it's
wasn't
absolute garbage. Garbage peripheral.
Yeah.
It's like an Apple Vision Pro.
Okay.
Yeah, but it's a glove that you wore from. It was like late 80s, early 90s, I think. Nintendo made it.
1989. Yeah, release date. I just looked it up. Wow.
It is. Yeah, it makes no sense to play games on it, but it is
There we go.
probably one of the coolest things I've seen. Like when you see it.
Wow.
There you go.
There you go.
Oh my gosh, he's got it right there. All right, for those of
That's
you that are
it.
watching on YouTube, you can actually see it.
Yeah.
Wow,
So
I did not know what that
find
is.
the guy wearing the glove, and that'll be me.
It's on it's thematic with sci-fi parallel. I think it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. I mean, it just tells me that you've never seen what's that movie called? The Master or whatever, the Christian Slater movie where they debut Mario 3. Anyway, the villain wears a power glove. If anyone who hasn't seen this movie should definitely check it out.
Koji
I'm with
knows.
Allie. I haven't seen it.
Yeah.
I don't.
Oh, The Wizard. It's called The Wizard. Oh my God, 1989 film. They debut Mario 3 in this movie. It's Fred Savage, Christian
Wow.
Slater. Yeah, and the villain is a guy named Lucas. He wears a power glove.
I went to go search the wizard, and the first thing was the wizard power glove showed up. So it checks out.
There you go. It knows. It knows.
Yeah. Agreed though, just on the subject of the Prime Championship. I mean, we keep mentioning it. It is the thing that I'm most looking forward to in 2025. I simply can't wait. I mean, I'm assuming you guys are it's at the HyperX Arena in Vegas, which is super iconic. I'm assuming you guys are gonna do it up, pretty big. So yeah. I haven't really gotten both of yours takes on it. So anything that you can say about the championship? Maybe
Yeah, I
learn out.
heard Kalos is going to be wandering around shirtless as Gafar. That was the rumor.
That is an inaccurate rumor. Um, I think what I'm focused on right now is getting the trophy. Like we have a trophy design that we're trying to validate is like going to be we can engineer in time. So I'm very much focused on making sure, and I'm told not to share it yet because obviously we want to make sure we can actually build it because it's quite it looks like an object art, I guess is the best way to explain it, but it has function. And so I'm very much in the weeds on that with the team to make sure that happens correctly. And it's big. It's not like a small thing. So it's pretty iconic, I think. But yeah, I'm pretty excited about it. I know Fitch is in Swish and a bunch of others who've kind of worked on making all this happen and finding us the right location. And I've never been to Vegas, so that's going to be something. I'm just excited. I'm excited in general though to like find out who actually is the best player. Like who is the champion? I'm like super excited about that. Um,
The
and
first
I
too, I
yeah,
mean, there's something about
exactly.
that title of the first ever champion, and yeah, and I completely agree with you. I think that is going to be like so crazy to see.
Yeah, yeah. I think the bragging rights that come from that are going to be massive. But yeah, I'm just excited about it. I think like generally, I know a lot of the team has some of the different kind of pieces and in flight are also already nailed down for making all this, a parallel specific big event. And um, yeah, I'm just trying to make sure that the trophy's there on time.
Get your singing voices ready.
Oh yeah, we're gonna
Oh
definitely
man.
do karaoke.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's a parallel staple, as Allie knows.
Yes,
So
I'm warming up my vocal cords now. We'll
there we
have to
go.
find a good spot in Vegas. But yeah, I mean it is so the actual event itself, it is going to be closed, but there's going to be a lot going on outside of the competition. So, if you are a community member and you want to show up, I mean there's going to be a lot going on. So, definitely if you can make it out to the first ever Prime Championship.
Yeah, I'm sure there's going to be if I know parallel at all, there's going to be some teasers from some of the other stuff that we're working on. So if you want to know more about some of our other little side projects, come find us. Look for the guy in the power glove or the shirtless guy with the pipe.
Yeah, any
Yeah, I'm gonna
mention,
quick.
real quick of, like, Colony, Taucetti, anything you wanna say to the people?
Yeah, sure. Everything's kind of as it was before on track. Colony's on track for Q1. We're like deep in the final kind of push of a bunch of stuff we need to get in for before we go into another round of testing. I think we'll probably in mid Q1 probably be in a place where we'll ask some community members and hardcore gamers to come in and test it with us. And Taucetti's on track. Everything's good. Like I mean, like it's hard to say much without like telling you things about the game itself. But overall, I mean, all the engineering roadmaps, everything from a delivery standpoint is looking good, and it's just going to come down to then testing and dog fooding as aggressively as possible before we go live with each of them. I'd say like somewhere between Q3 and Q4, we'll probably see Taucetti go into an alpha. We also have to pick a name, so maybe you guys can think about that one with us. Maybe run a competition for cool names for Taucetti.
That'd be cool.
But yeah, the Colony's good. I think like we're putting in a bunch of different stuff that gives a little more agency to player. We're we kind of gave a sneak peek of some of the interstellar shipping service to move items between your agent's wallet and your wallet, and just kind of putting a bunch of stuff in. It's presented a lot of different kind of problems entirely as a result of, as a game, like when you build something like this, just because there's no reference, like no one's ever built an AI simulation game like this. And then there's like new parameters that are introduced as a result, like the game has LLMs, and therefore you have a different kind of cost to operating the game. So how do you structure the revenue of the game, and how does it consume Prime, and where does it distribute Prime? And there's all kinds of different stuff. It's almost like adding another level of nuance to navigate for the not for the player at all. The game's quite simple for the player, but for the design teams, because like not only are you making this game an AI game, you're also making it a blockchain game, and so you're kind of trying to figure out exactly which piece should go when and where, so you can test them effectively. And then but yeah, it's good, it's exciting, I think.
Just to add to that, the one thing that I the piece of alpha that I guess I'll leak here is our first like larger scale playtest of it, when it's available in like pre-alpha or whatever you want to call it, will be of avatar holders. But initially we're just proving out the concept with the oh my god, the Core avatars. But anyone who has an avatar will be able to play, but you may not be able to just see them all immediately. We're just trying to make sure that all of those systems that Kalos just mentioned are up to snuff and working the way that we want, etc. So just don't be sad if you log in and your Shroud avatar isn't quite available yet. But yeah, the game, we're gonna get some people in there hopefully soon and get them shaking it out for us. So just keep your eye open for that, and harass us at in Vegas if you want to know more.
Awesome. I have just one last question. It's more of like a personal question that got sprouted after just listening to all that you guys are doing. Like, how do you manage this almost like Elon Musk level of like, I'm gonna do all of these different things, have these projects? Like, I'm just curious because it seems like y'all are full steam ahead always, and I just love the insight.
I think there's like two, maybe. Do you want to answer first, Koji?
No, I was just gonna throw it to you and say, how do we manage? I don't know. I mean, I
Well,
slowly
I think the
die a
answer is
little.
we don't. We
Yeah,
don't.
slowly die a little
Yeah.
on the inside every day. That's how you
Yeah.
manage.
Yeah, for sure. It's been like, I was looking at the activity chart on OpenSea the other day, and I was like, oh yeah, like 2021 is when we started this, and like we're about to turn the clock over shortly here, right on 2025. Yeah, like I think it's a lot, but at the same time, it's like these are things we're interested. There's really two answers here. One answer is like it's not manageable. Like it's definitely comes at a cost. It is a lot of work. It is a lot of sleepless nights. It is a lot of like coordination and teamwork and making to make the progress we want to make. But the other answer is that uh, it's like we get to make things that we are super interested in. So therefore, like you don't mind if you want to call it a sacrifice or whatever it is. It's like we want to be the ones to create the world's first AI simulation game. Like we want to do that. We want to see everyone's reaction when they get to run around in a third person shooter as their avatar for the first time. We want to see people enjoy Parallel TCG on mobile, and to have them open crates and enjoy that, right? Like I think there's things that we feel enough desire for ourselves to be able to experience and be able to watch other people experience that we're willing to go the distance on it. I think in terms of like how we do it, like to answer the question more more coherently around like the actual like structure is really we just break out into teams. They're like the people who and where necessary, people will hop and help from team to team, but ultimately like the key delivery people and the people who own that product or shipping that update or shipping that build or whatever it is, like they understand their mission, and they drive to that target come hell or high water. And I think like having that mentality, like we're not as small of a team as we used to be, but I think like everyone in the room is hungry for that growth, is hungry for creating kind of something that we can put in the ground and say like, we made this and we're proud of it. And I think that helps a lot. It's just like a whole bunch of people with like a couple marbles loose, chasing something that they believe in. And so it makes it possible, but it is, I'm not going to lie. It is like, and it's probably not the answer that people would want to hear, but it's like, it's an incredible amount of work. And it doesn't stop. It's definitely, but at the same time, it's like, this is exactly what I want to be doing. Like I couldn't pick something else. I wouldn't want to be building something else. So is that a sad answer?
No.
No.
I love that answer. I think that was great.
Okay.
Well, I think you guys are doing an incredible job. Thank you so much for coming on the episode today. Godspeed, on all that you're doing. And we really look forward to the future of Parallel, the entire ecosystem, and we'll hopefully catch you guys in another episode.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. Appreciate you having us.
Thank you guys for coming on.
This was a 983 Media Productions podcast.